Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Brian Anthony Davis. I am so glad to be here with you on this show. This is going to be a great week in Steeler Nation as the Steelers are about to welcome, let's say right now, 8. Count them, 8 new players. And it is coming up only days away. When we are recording the show, it is Sunday morning, and I cannot wait. So we were having some trouble with the sound to start the show. It looks like I'm hoping it is back up. And if somebody can let me know on the live chat if it is okay now with a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. So what we're doing is we're going to get ready for the draft. We're going to talk about that. We've been talking about the draft like crazy. That's because that's what you want to talk about. We're probably going to talk a little bit less about the draft on this show today, and I don't think anybody would mind a little departure from that. And please excuse me, unshaven. Usually I like to shave before the show and get ready. I spent the weekend with my Boy Scout troop in the woods, camping out in a frigid rainstorm. So I am back, and I figured that I'm roughing it with you guys today. So I usually don't take that. I really make sure that I look pretty good. Sorry, I got a little fluster there. Sorry. My good friend Ryan Lynn Buechler says he sucks anyways. Bye. Yeah, I guess I do. So Ryan, thanks for the kind words, and have a great day. I hope you do. I hope you can find something better to do with your time, and I appreciate it. So anyways, so as we're doing here, we're looking at what the week that was, and we're looking forward to the draft. But something big happened in the week that was for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it didn't happen directly to our team. It happened to our great rivals. The Baltimore Ravens did it again, and they drive me crazy because Ozzie Newsome was there. He's now gone. Eric DeCosta's there as the GM, and they're wizards. They do things like crazy there to get more picks, to get players all the time. This time they got rid of a player. They got rid of Pro Bowl right tackle Orlando Brown, son of the late Zeus Brown, who also played for the Ravens and the Browns way back when. And I got to tell you, this is a trade that they made with the Kansas City Chiefs, who desperately need help on that offensive line. They send them to them for what I think is a king's ransom. Back when the Native Americans got fleeced by the U.S., well, we weren't the U.S. then, but fleeced by us to purchase Manhattan for like $24, that might be a better deal than what the Kansas City Chiefs, the Kansas City Chiefs gave up everything. So the Ravens have a first-round pick. They have 3 other picks. Now they're giving away their second-round pick, but they're getting the third-round pick this year too. But it just seems like they gave a lot. And because of that trade, what's going to happen now? The Ravens need another left tackle. Now or right tackle, whatever they're doing. I mean, you have the health of their big left tackle already to look at, who went down in the Steeler game last on November 1st. So that's something to go ahead and look at. But they might bring in Alejandro Villanueva. Here's the thing. Alejandro Villanueva, when the Steelers found out that he was visiting last week, the Ravens, not the Steelers, but the Steeler fans, some of you were up in arms about it. Some of you were really upset. How could he do it? We had one of our guys from our Slack channel, somebody here at BTSC, would he even possibly consider going there? The guy doesn't have a job. The Steelers, unless there's something we don't know, Steelers haven't offered him a job. So he's a free agent with no prospect. I mean, doesn't know what he's going to be doing in the fall unless he wants to retire. Obviously, he has not put in retirement papers, so he probably wants to stick around in the league. So my question is this: why is it so bad if he's wearing purple next year when we're not offering him anything in black and gold? So that's what I'm thinking here. I hope he ends up as a Baltimore Raven, because once a Steeler, always a Steeler. And when we let you go, when we show you the door and you still want to play, go get a job. This is about your family. Get a job. And if it's with the Ravens, hey, it's our loss, their gain. And we're not talking about how he's gotten older and maybe his skills have deteriorated. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the fact that we can't expect a player not to go get another job elsewhere. So that's what I'm thinking. So just like I said with Bud Dupree, I will stand up and I will clap for him when he runs into that stadium out of the tunnel wearing Tennessee blue, white, and red, and silver, and all those colors. So that is the big thing here. So you can't be upset if Big Al is a Raven. And I would cheer for him too, for all the service that he had here. He was great. He did his own thing. And as Timothy says, he hasn't officially signed yet, not until after the draft. But you know how things happen. And we saw it with the Tyson Alualu thing too. It's what if the Steelers end up not getting an offensive tackle in the draft? And we just talked about this recently. If the Steelers were signing him, we would think that they were going to sign him after the draft. What if they don't get what they want and they go for another position? And they go to him and say, hey, instead of going to Baltimore, we'll give you this or we'll match it. And he wants to come back. Just like Tyson Alualu. This just happened. That could possibly happen too. But let's not fault a guy for leaving. Especially when it's really, we didn't offer him a chance to come back. Or at least so we think. That's what I'm saying. So I know it would stink to see him in black and purple, but I'm not thinking about the player. I'm thinking about the man and the man and his family. So that's what I'm hoping. Now we have some other things here too. And wow, I see a very close family friend in the live chat. So nice to see you here. Great to see you. This is the first time I've seen you in the live chat. Nice to see you. I got to tell you, the Steelers are looking good in this draft. No matter where they go, they can screw this up, sure. I just don't really think they're going to screw this draft up, because if they don't get the guy that you think they should get, they know who they're getting. So if they don't get a running back in the first round, they're going to get the center or the left tackle or maybe a corner, because a corner is up there as well. Not just because of the Justin Lane thing. Don't think that they were looking at a corner way before Justin Lane went 89 and a 60. Stay in the right lane, Justin Lane. Bad joke. We call him Lustin Jane here because Jeff Hartman mentioned him on one show back in the fall, and we didn't want to mention his name. And he got all up in arms about the fact that Jeff was talking about him not being ready to start in the second year as far as that goes. So with Justin Lane being arrested, I don't think it's going to change their draft picture whatsoever. If they're going to draft a corner high, and we talked about them drafting a corner high with Steven Nelson gone and with Joe Hayden getting up there in years and having 1 year left on his contract. Now, he can still be extended. They could still do something like that. But I don't think Justin is going to change the draft order. But if we get back to the fact that if they get a center in the first round, they're going to get the running back in maybe not the second, is I don't think Javonte Williams is falling. Let's say maybe the third or the fourth, they're going to bring in running back talent. They're going to bring in a center. It might not be the guy you want. It might not be Creed Humphrey. And it might not be a left tackle right away, but you're going to get him. You're going to get those guys in that mix. So that's kind of what's going to happen. Don't worry about drafting corners. Timothy Coleman, I see you. I get it. Haven't had the greatest luck in drafting corners. There's been a few there. Keenan Lewis was a good pick in the third round in 99. Another good pick was William Gay in the fifth round in 1997. Excuse me, 2007 and 2009. My gosh, I'm having trouble with my decades here. Must be sleeping in a tent for the last 2 days. So, yeah, Artie Burns situation. Remember, Artie Burns, that thing, they went completely against what Rick Hoover is saying here. Rick Hoover says draft the BPA in this draft. Yes, and I agree with you. And the BPA could be one of those guys. Do not draft the position. So whatever they draft, they're going to draft the best, but they're going to get the best player available in the second round, the third round, and they kind of do that. Artie Burns situation, he was the sixth corner taken in the 2016 draft. If they would have waited another, okay, what? They picked him at 25. If they waited another 13 picks, they get Xavier Howard, who was almost Defensive Player of the Year last year, behind TJ Watt and, of course, the winner, Aaron Donald. But they did not get William Jackson III. Cincinnati took him right before they picked. They had their heart set on this guy. And what did they do? They panicked. They don't normally do that. If you look at who they draft, they don't really panic that way. So what happened? They were like, okay, we got to get a corner. We like this Artie Burns guy. They took him. It was just the wrong move. But if you look back in the last 20 years of drafting, I could count less on one hand. On one hand, but maybe about 4 times that didn't love the pick that they made and that it didn't work out. And if you do it, I mean, right away, we're saying 16 because we're saying Artie Burns. We're going to say 13 because of Jarvis Jones. We're not saying 18 yet. You know, the jury's still out. Terrell Edmunds could have a 10-year career here. He hasn't done anything horrible. He just has not been a first ballot Hall of Famer. He hasn't been a Pro Bowler. But he's a great compliment to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And it's working. I know Minkah wasn't there when they drafted him. So, you know, everybody's split on Terrell Edmunds. But, you know, they might offer him that fifth round tender. We just don't know what's going to happen there. Sean Davis, I consider him drafting a safety. And they've had some luck with safeties. So he came out as a safety, Tim. So I'm probably going to not mention him there. I like how Boing Boom says Edmunds is not a bust. He's not Minkah, but he is also not Mike Mitchell. Jordan Belshner says Sutton. Hey, they gave Sutton another contract. So that's kind of one of the things that you really can't say. But look at this. The teams that get the great corners, the teams that get Jalen Ramsey, they're drafting these guys high. If the Steelers were in the top 10, the top 15, now I agree. What I'm saying here is not going to, you know, change how they evaluate talent and, you know, getting a guy in the second round, the third round. I get it. But if you're going to get that blockbuster corner, you're going to have to get them early. It's just like a quarterback. You want to get a quarterback in the first 12 picks. Just like I really think you want to get a corner in the first 12 picks. There's some good guys out there. If they decide that they're okay with the back issues of Caleb Farley, they're going to draft Caleb Farley. But that's weird because he might fall. He might fall to them. Then they've got to make it a decision at that point. What if a guy like Patrick Surtain the second falls? He's not going to. I doubt it. But what if he does? If he's there, they'll probably take him. He'd be a great value. But the thing about it, they can't get somebody at 24 and expect him to be amazing at corner. He could be good. He could be solid. There's those guys that end up working out. But what I'm saying here is it's just like that quarterback position. Corner, quarter. You got to get those guys early. When Ben Roethlisberger fell in their lap, remember, they weren't expecting to get Ben Roethlisberger. Everybody in Pittsburgh, and that was one draft that I was 24/7 coverage, and just as a fan, I was all over. And if you don't remember, we were reserved for the fact that Phillip Rivers was going to be the next quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was no doubt in anybody's mind. Then Eli Manning happened. Eli said no, San Diego. So they make that deal. But they knew that San Diego valued Rivers over Roethlisberger. And I think a lot of that has to do with they were 6 years removed from the debacle that was another Manning draft. Manning going number 1 to Indy in 1998, and Ryan Leaf going number 2 to San Diego. Ryan Leaf Ben Roethlisberger reminded some people of Ryan Leaf during the draft process. And I don't have confirmation on this. I just know in my mind that that's what San Diego was thinking. So they valued Rivers, did not want Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger fell to number 11. That's kind of the way that you want to get those quarterbacks early. In that same draft, the Buffalo Bills traded up to get J.P. Lozman. So he was the 4th quarterback on the board. Kind of a stretch. And you know what? When you stretch for a guy like that, it doesn't work out. So that trade up didn't work out. So you want to get the good ones. So this year, we're talking about a quarterback. People say, hey, maybe the Steelers could take a quarterback. You don't want them to take one at 24. You want them to trade up to get one if they're going to do it. Because a lot of those guys are going to be gone. And then you settle, just like you did with Artie Burns. So that's what BPA means. Now, I want to go back to one more thing about players falling into your lap, the ones you don't expect to be there. And the best example is a story from 1987. Tony Dungy was the defensive coordinator for the Steelers at the time. And he goes to Chuck Noll. And he says, you want to send me to Purdue to check out Rod Woodson? We know all about him. But why are we wasting our time, Chuck? We shouldn't even go. He's never going to be there for us at number 10. So what happens? He falls to him. They snatch him up. Tony's like, I'm shocked. I never thought he'd be there. And it fell in their lap. Those kind of things can happen too. So all I'm saying, you struck gold with Rod Woodson. You struck gold with Ben Roethlisberger. Those guys fall. You're not always going to strike gold, but if you listen to Dave Schofield's Stat Geek from a couple weeks back, I believe a week and a half ago, he talks about the best teams in drafting overall in the last 20 some years. The best team in the AFC drafting is not the New England Patriots. And he used career average value from Pro Football Reference, and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. The best team in the league was the New Orleans Saints. I think Detroit was in there too. And Detroit's hasn't had a great record. So, that's one of the things we look at here. So I tell you what, we talked about Alejandro Villanueva possibly becoming a Baltimore Raven. And we're going to not really talk about that, but we're going to talk about players when we come back after the break that left the Steelers and broke your heart. And we're going to do that right after the break here on BTSC. It's Tales from 2 a.m. Welcome back to Tales from 2 a.m. My name is Brian Anthony Davis from BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It is so great to see you here. Wow, it is draft week. It is coming. We are finally going to get what we think is going to be 8 players. It could be more. It could be less if they trade up, if they trade down, which I'm still hoping for a trade down. Not out of the first round. You know my thoughts on that. But if they trade down just a little bit and get maybe another 5th round pick, maybe a 2nd round pick only, I'd love to have a 3rd and a 5th. Yeah, where's that 3rd and 5th? Where did we hear that before? I don't know. Somebody asked me on the live chat, and when I'm doing a solo show, I'm really bad at the live chat. So if you're saying something to me and I miss it, say it again. Hopefully I'll catch it because I don't multitask well. Ask Mrs. Bad. I'm very bad at multitasking. So I'm trying. So let's do this. Before I do that, I believe Dave Shipley asked my email address, and you can get a hold of me at badavis8889@gmail.com, at BTSCBAD on Twitter. That's all you have to do. And I want to bring this up here. Dave Shipley sends me $5, and he wants to send me a copy of the original Heinz Field blueprint, full size. I see. This is how bad I multitask. I didn't read this. I just saw that you wanted to do that. Thank you so much. That's, we have in the live chat, we have the best. We have the best people in the live chat, and I can't do this show without you. You know how much I adore you all. So thank you. Even the guy, I got to tell you, the guy that mentioned that I stink and not going to stay on the show because of my audio problems, I value you too. Hey, if you're taking the time to be on this, listen to the show or watch the show, I appreciate you. If you want to insult me, that doesn't bother me a little bit. And then there's the guy on YouTube. Hey, he tunes in every week. He bashes me like crazy on the YouTube comments. But hey, I got to tell you this. You're still here. Thanks. I appreciate it. Doesn't matter whether you love me or you hate me. Thank you for being here because you're supporting BTSC, and we're trying to give you the best Steeler news. I don't mind being of all the 10 podcasters, if I'm the worst of the bunch, I have no problem being that. You're still hanging out with us, giving us a chance to talk about what we love more than anything. So, gosh, we appreciate you all so much. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's talk about those players. And I think I saw one in the live chat. Let's talk about those players that left either via free agency, could have traded them away, could have left because of money, could have left just for a number of reasons for the Steelers just wanting to be done with them. Because remember, the Steelers aren't always the good guys here. In some situations, they're the bad guys because they're making a business decision. A lot of people can say that the bad guys in the Steven Nelson deal, that wasn't a deal with Steven Nelson leaving, were the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it could be very well said, but they had to make a business decision. And we talked about this on the show. Steven Nelson needs to make a business decision for his family. I hope he gets a team soon. I'd love for them to find a way to bring him back in black and gold. Doubt that's going to happen. But for me, once you're a Steeler, unless remember what I say about going to a game or coming in the live chat, anybody's welcome in my living room as long as you don't pee on the couch. If you're a fan from Boston and you're coming wearing your Patriots gear to Heinz Field, I love it because I do that. I go to other stadiums when I can. But I'm always respectful because it's someone else's living room. So if you're there, I'm cool with you. Same in the live chat. I'm cool with you. Just don't pee all over the place. Sometimes a player pees all over the place, and it's time to you let them go or it doesn't work. But you hate to see them go. In some cases, you don't hate to see them go. But what I'm saying here, who broke your heart? That's the question. Somebody mentioned Hardy Nickerson. Here's the thing about Hardy Nickerson. First of all, let me say this. Absolutely. Do you realize how awesome it would have been if Hardy Nickerson was a Steeler for life? That guy had an amazing career. He had a good start in Pittsburgh. They were loaded, though, when he left there. They brought Levon Kirkland in 1992 as a rookie. They still had Jerry O around. They had a lot of linebackers. Kevin Green came in 93. You had, my gosh, you had the guy, Jarrell Williams. I always forget his name. No, he was at number 57. Jarrell Williams. He left for a free agent contract. And why did he leave? He left for the same reason. They were loaded, and they were so loaded at linebacker back then. So Hardy got a lot of money. They didn't need to throw it at him because they had replacements. Man, I would have loved to have had him there. Another guy that I'm going to bring up is the guy that I talked about earlier, the guy that broke my heart leaving, and it wasn't his fault. I think Rod Woodson would have loved to have stayed in Pittsburgh. I think he would have. They didn't value. He was coming off an injury 2 years earlier. They just didn't feel that they needed to keep him. Man, was that a huge mistake. Can you imagine what would have happened if he was on this team in 1997? They beat I just say it. I'll say it right now. They beat the Broncos, and they go to the Super Bowl, and they battle it out with the Green Bay Packers. And I think they probably win it. Sean Manahan saying it right there. Dave Shipley's saying Greg Lloyd, too. It's his other favorite. The thing about Greg Lloyd is he played one more year in the league, so it stunk to see him go. But they were at the end of the career, and sometimes you need to make those business decisions. It stinks. I hate business decisions. But they've got to be made. Mike Webster's a big one. Mike Webster still wanted to play. They drafted Dermontti Dawson. They drafted Chuck Lanza. There's no reason to keep him around, and he left for the Chiefs for 2 seasons. He was actually a player coach with the Chiefs. A lot of people don't know that. Jason Winningham is saying Earl Holmes. Jason, Earl Holmes? I was in Vegas when I found out that they lost Earl Holmes due to free agency. I was so crushed. But something happened. After they lost Holmes in free agency, a couple days later, they pick up James Ferrier. And I'm thinking at the time, I'm like, well, all right, I guess that's a replacement, but he was a 7th overall pick. Is Ferrier? All right, we'll give it a go with Ferrier, but I'd rather keep Earl Holmes. I'm not saying that now. James Ferrier was awesome. And if you ask, I read this, if you ask Earl Holmes, he will tell you. This was in an article that I read. Should have never left Pittsburgh. Bill Cowher told me not to go. He was right. But when these guys leave via free agency and they're offered all this money and they're 25, 26, maybe 27 the oldest on that first contract and they get a chance to go, it's hard for them not to go. I keep on saying it. I said it earlier in the show. If you were a friend or a loved one of a guy who loved Pittsburgh, like Bud Dupree loved Pittsburgh, would you tell him to stay because there's such a huge gap, $7 to $8 million possibly in what they could have paid him. You wouldn't have told him. You would have said, "Hey, I know you love Pittsburgh. You go back and visit, but this is an opportunity you're not going to get in Pittsburgh." Because remember, think about this. That first contract renewal might be your last. Sean Manahan also says Kevin Green. I hated when Kevin Green left. Man, once again, rest in peace, Kevin Green. That Kevin Green was a guy that he was one of the hearts of that team. I believe Greg Lloyd. I felt like Greg Lloyd was a soul of that team back in the 90s. I thought Kevin Green played with so much heart. They all played with heart. But, it's hard to even balance between heart and soul. I mean, they both mean pretty much the same thing when you're looking at the value of a player, when we're talking about the intestinal fortitude of a person. But that was a guy that all the passion and all the emotion. Lloyd was more of a silent assassin. He was one of those guys. Well, he wasn't silent, but he wasn't a huge celebrator on the field. You knew he had the passion, but he was just going to kill you silent. And that's what he did. Man, I love those teams. I wish those guys would have gotten one ring at least. They got none. But man, I would have loved it. So somebody mentioned Mike Merriweather. Mike Merriweather, I talked to him, and I know I tell the same stories over and over again, and I'm sorry. I met Mike Merriweather in an autograph signing. His line was not very long, and I waited until he slowed down, and I just had a conversation with him. And he's like, I said, man, I was crushed when you ended up getting traded. He held out. Held out for the whole 1988 season. He's like, man, I was young and I should have never listened to my agent. That's what he said. I should never listen to my agent. That's another thing that we don't think about. You have all these guys have an agent whispering in their ear because what do they want? They want their 10%. They want that. So they want you to get the most money. You're going to get paid. We found out with Juju Smith-Schuster. Look at all the money that he makes from other endeavors. He makes a lot. He had a Pizza Hut commercial. He was just on, my God, was it Xbox One? I mean, I don't even know what commercial. The one where his avatar ended up eating Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, it was like they debuted that at the Super Bowl. I don't even know what it was for. The guy could make money in his sleep. So when he wasn't getting the contract that he didn't think, not getting the contract that he wanted, getting $8 million to stay in Pittsburgh, a place he loved, it was worth it for him. With the caveat that he's going to try it again. Now, he could have gotten more money. The agent could have gotten more money if they would have went to Kansas City or Baltimore. Could have got a lot more. He's betting on himself. I think it's a smart bet. If he leaves next year for the money, just like we were talking about earlier, I'm not going to fault him. If the Steelers can't give him the money that somebody else could give him, and it's a huge gap, that means so much. So back to Merriweather. Yeah, he's a man. I should have never done it. I should have stayed in Pittsburgh. But what did I know back then? That guy was a great player. If you don't know Mike Merriweather, and Tony DeFeo actually had, when he was a kid, had a Mike Merriweather jersey. If you don't know who he is, find out about him. George Teston brings up, I hated to lose Eric Green also, but he went downhill since. Eric Green actually had a couple good years with Baltimore. He was, I was looking at the 1997 game for the Retro Show. He was killing the Steelers. I wanted to keep him badly. That's another guy. If they find a way to pay him, they probably win a Super Bowl in 95 or 97. They have an opportunity to, because that's a weapon you just don't replace easily. If you don't know a lot about Eric Green either, read about Eric Green. And don't think that, he was just the guy that the Steelers took instead of Emmitt Smith. Because they traded down to, I think it was to number 20, and And Dallas traded up to the Steelers pick, I believe it was 16. So Steelers were never going to take Emmitt Smith in that draft. It's easy for us to say, oh, they passed up Emmitt Smith. The guy ahead of him, they picked with the 7th pick in the first round. Tim Worley had an amazing rookie season. He was really good. McEldew, I don't know. He mentions Chad Scott. I like Chad Scott. Chad Scott actually had a better career than you would think for Pittsburgh when I look back at some of the stuff. He just didn't do what a lot of people thought that he would do. But McEldew also says Mike Vrabel. Now, here's the thing about Mike Vrabel. Did we know what Mike Vrabel could do? I mean, Bill Cowher had to know how good he was. He was a demon on special teams. He was amazing. But the Steelers didn't value Mike Vrabel as much as, of course, the Patriots did. They made him a legend in New England. I think that's one of the guys we mismanaged. McEldew's on fire here. This is the guy that, man, I was crushed to lose. Yancey Thigpen. One of my first jerseys was Yancey Thigpen. I bought it in Value City. I bought it in 1987 in Value City. Yancey, man, that guy. Oh, loved him. Jason says Lewis Lips. He was so dynamic back in the day. They lost him for one season to the New Orleans Saints where he hardly played. He was done. And it just stunk to see that he was, any of these players, when you see that they're done, and when the Steelers say goodbye to them, it hurts because it hurts some of the players. Troy Polamalu hasn't been the same he doesn't have the same relationship with the Steelers. It might reform, but he was hurt. He wasn't ready to go. Now, Hines Ward, they did the same thing to Hines Ward, and Hines Ward said, could have gone to, if I'm not mistaken, I think Baltimore did offer him something. Other teams offered him something. He's like, I'm just going to retire. I want to retire as a Steeler. So, yeah, you know what? I kind of think that we forget about the business side and we just think that these guys leave. And we've got to understand that in the case of Alejandro Villanueva, Steelers aren't giving him a job. Go get your job. So that goes back to the beginning of the show. Yancey went for big money when he did. Man, like I said, that guy was good. I remember seeing his first ever game. That's I was on the sidelines for the Indianapolis game in 1992. So anyways, Dave Shipley says, took Bradshaw 25 years to remend the relationship. Yeah, it does. McEldew also mentions Ernie Mills. I love me some Ernie Mills. Number 89. Here's another thing, and they're all ifs. We talked about if so-and-so was on the team, if Woodson was on the team, if anybody was on the team, they win a ring. Eric Green, we mentioned him. Here's the thing about Ernie Mills. If Ernie Mills does not get hurt in Super Bowl 30 against Dallas, if that knee doesn't get whacked out, they win. They could have won that Super Bowl if Mills was in there. Because Corey Holiday was in instead and ran the wrong route. So I got to tell you, it was a really fun show. We're getting ready for the draft. Remember, check out tomorrow night. Check out the Steeler Hangover, where if you were called to draft in that show, you're drafting the BTSC mock draft from the live chat. So we'll see you there. Show up. If somebody doesn't show up, maybe you can get on the reserve, but it's a lot of fun. So for myself, Brian Anthony Davis, and Behind the Steel Curtain, thank you so much. I ask you to be safe. I ask you to be true to yourself and always, always be behind the steel curtain. We'll see you next time, my friend.